Hey everybody, welcome. I'm Daniel G. Garza, and this is a special episode of Put It Together. Welcome to the show. I want to say hi to everybody joining us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. If you do me a favor and share those on your page so that other folks can watch along. If you're watching us on YouTube, when you scroll down, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. It'll let you know every time there's a new show on the channel. And remember, we've got Christian and Daniel show, the Card Devo. We've got Put It Together, horoscopes, which I just remember I've not posted the horoscopes for this week. So if you're watching live, don't panic. I'll put them on later this evening so you can catch them for the week. And those horoscopes are up on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and some other pages. So go check those out. Thank you for following and liking and commenting. Make sure you share those too. And if you're interested in this private session, make sure you get in touch with us for that. This week, I'm really excited. This is somebody that I met through a project that she's working on, and she just happened to call on me. And I don't remember exactly how we came to connect, but we did. And what was supposed to be an hour conversation turned into 3. And now not only are we colleagues, but we're and she became my life coach, but she's also a very dear friend. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Where's the bio? I have the bio right here. Grace Lawson is a lesbian life coach, life soul coach, minister, filmmaker, HR consultant, and business executive. She's an author, motivational speaker, workshop facilitator, artist, teacher, and community activist. She is the CEO and Chief Amazing Princess of the Rainbow Soul Circle, an organization dedicated to creating a sustainable world that is optimal for all people. Her credentials include 2 bachelor's degrees and 3 master's degrees in the areas of math, physics, English, education, business, insurance, and metaphysical science. She has certifications in coaching, diversity and inclusion, SPHR, I'm going to ask what all these mean, GPHR, and CEBS. Her writing work includes business communication, life coaching articles, screenplays, and books. Grace was nominated for the Stonewall Award for her book, Coming Out Alive. She was awarded the Alfred Lealand Crabb Award for the Physics of Faulkner. She is currently working on a Doctor of Philosophy, Ph.D., specializing in holistic life counseling. And just when I thought I did too much, here comes Grace, just to blow me out of the water. But without much, let me bring her on. Grace Lawson, welcome to the show.
Hello, Daniel, and everyone out there.
How are you?
I am good. I'm good, especially since you're here. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Deep breath. I know you're going to do awesome. Grace was a little nervous before we started the show, but which is weird because you're used to interviewing people, you're used to talking to people. But it is.
Daniel would not give me control. That's the issue. So I have no idea what he's going to ask. Makes me a little bit nervous.
It's all family friendly. Wink, wink.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I trust Daniel. He is just one of the best men I have ever known, and I feel blessed to have known him, and I'm certain everybody that's watching this feels the same way. He is just an exceptional human being. So I trust him. It's going to be good.
Thank you. I'm really glad you're here. As I was telling people, part of our show is telling folks how I met my guest, and I don't remember exactly who connected us, but I feel like somebody connected us at the beginning, correct? Do you remember?
That's right. I don't. Sometimes I don't know the way I did that. Sometimes, because I sent out emails to just a lot of email addresses that I had, and then they were forwarded to all over the place. And then so someone forwarded to you, I think.
Yeah. So I got an email saying, hey, there is this lady doing a documentary on men. And I'm like, I think I qualify. So we arranged to meet on Zoom, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was scheduled for an hour. And then we ended up talking for 3 hours, just nonstop communication. Right? Do I remember correctly?
Yes. And you start to interview somebody, and you just know it's going to be this amazing interview. And I mean, it was, well, and he had to do a bit of a questionnaire beforehand. So I got a sense of who he was before the film started, and I knew it was going to be amazing, and he was incredible, and we're still working. I kind of got sidetracked from that to the Rainbow Soul Circle, but we're picking that piece back up, so you'll actually be able to see his interview that he did a couple years ago, and it was incredible. So
well, thank you. I'm excited to see the whole thing put together and the show put it together. But because I've heard from you just little nuggets about some of the other gentlemen that are part of this documentary. So I'm really thrilled to see the whole thing put together. So let us know when that comes up, and I'm sure you'll come back on the show and promote that once it's ready.
Of course.
We'll
Anytime to spend more time with you, Daniel.
Oh, keep
And I
going.
really, yeah, and you know, those folks that on this don't know me, that don't know me yet, but I'm not one that blows smoke, so I mean that. So you know,
I appreciate it. We as I mentioned in the intro, not only did we end up was she my interviewer, we ended up becoming friends. We're working together on Rainbow Soul Circle, and then she is now I got certified through Grace for my life coaching, and then she's going through my program of spiritual coaching. So there's a lot of information between us, but it's not just about us blowing kisses at each other the whole time. Grace Lawson, tell us how you put it together.
I thought about that because I did watch some of the other shows, and I could tell, oh, that's something I'll know ahead of time, since he won't let me ask my own questions or set myself up for stuff. But I think about in terms of my life right now, and I would say it just struggles and things in the past that sometimes putting it together is just keep going. Sometimes that's it, that your life has so much stuff going on, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and the one thing that you just have to do in those moments is just keep going. It's like the Wilson Phillips song, hold on for one more day. And I think that that if you can keep doing that, keep having just a tad bit of faith in yourself and the universe, just a tad bit, then it all comes together at some point. So,
Gotcha. So tell us more about your story. Who is Grace Lawson? And before you start, I want to remind everybody watching that this is an interactive show. So if you have any questions or want to join the conversation or any comments, please post them on whatever page you're watching on, and I'll make sure that Grace sees them. So, Grace, tell us your story.
Well, from the bio that we had and everything, I would say freak, just a freak, a little bit busy, a little bit overachieving, maybe with all the stuff I've done. But part of it was just I really do love learning, and so it was very easy for me to take other classes and want to explore other parts of the world, of the universe than what I had explored previously. So. So I started out kind of getting education. I became a teacher, and then realized that I really wanted to try something else for a while. Went into business, but during that time, all that time, I kept having these visions that I was supposed to be doing something else, and I kept ignoring them. Like, yeah, right. Got these jobs in business. I got these degrees. I'm going to keep doing this, but the universe, I believe, will drive you to where you're supposed to be. And I believe that's where I'm at right now. They say everything you have, everything you do, it matters, and there's a reason for why you have the experiences you have. So I hold on to that, but I really did, ignore messages for 30 years, and then finally felt like that the universe hit me over the head with a hammer a couple times. Where it's like, you're going to go here, and the Rainbow Soul Circle is the result of that. It is where I got to a place where, and I think there are millions of people out there like me right now, where they are tired of the way things are in terms of humanity's well-being. After George Floyd, you saw all of these people all over the world marching and saying this is not acceptable. And we actually, you and I, we actually started in the Rainbow Soul Circle before that, but it rolled right into that, into it was the idea of, first of all, spirituality has multiple paths, and no one knows your path. And then and I believe that spirituality doesn't exclude people like gay folks, for example, LGBT, or anyone different. If you're different, a lot of traditional spiritual religions will say you don't fit in. And I don't believe that. I believe that we're all spiritual. We're all amazing, magnificent creatures. And that's what we should be. That's what spirituality should be driving. And so that's the big chunk of the Rainbow Soul Circle. Because I didn't realize I was gay till I was 41. And then it wasn't shortly after that I was running around with a group of gay folks, and we got a call where there was a young woman in her 20s who killed herself. And she killed herself because of her parents were, and forgive me if you're out there Southern Baptist folks, but her parents were Southern Baptist, and she was taught that she was going to go to hell. And I made a note to myself at that point, we need to do something about that. And then I kept being driven to this place where it's like, you're going to do something about this. Grace, you are going to do something about this. And so I realized I needed to create a spirituality it's really there. It's if you look at all the spiritual practices, love is the main component of all of them. And it's not love only white people or love only straight people, or it's love everyone. And so I realized that, that I had to create that, or at least I had to pull something together that pulled those things out of traditional religions.
Exactly.
And so that's part of the Rainbow Soul Circle. It started out with the idea of let's create a spirituality that doesn't exclude other religions, but focuses on what is common between all of them, which is love and taking care of the planet and all those sorts of things. And then when the George Floyd piece, originally my idea was if we can help people become who they really are and understand their magnificence, then they'll be focused on that, and that will inherently be good for the universe, for each other. But then when all the things with George Floyd and all these things have happened and the pandemic, it also became clear that because I believe I'm concerned about us destroying the planet as well, that we need to move quicker. And so we need to do, and if you look at sort of how, we got equal rights and where people of color have at least an opportunity now, that part of that is driven, that we needed to do more of that, more of the political activism piece. And so now the Rainbow Soul Circle is both. It's life transformation, helping people to transform their lives to be who they really are meant to be, and then creating an environment where we can bond through that. And so that's sort of the social component of it. And then the third component is political activism.
Sweet. Well, I want to go back a little bit because there's something that you said that resonated. Because it's one of my personal tags, overachiever. I'm definitely one of those people. I thrive on stress and chaos just to make sure that I get on, come out on top. Where does the overachiever in you come from?
Ooh. It comes from my parents, of course. I think there are elements of being overachiever that are I think are not ideal, and I have worked to recognize that and to not be quite as much of an overachiever. Like to take a break, But I think there were a couple of things. My dad was a perfectionist, and so I remember coming home with all A's and one B, and I remember him saying, "What about that B?" Which I don't think is the best path, for a child being raised today. But it did make me, get out and do. And he did work to teach us things. I remember him making me go into the garage and be there, both myself and my two brothers, while he changed the brakes on the car. So through him, I learned that I could do things, so I've changed the radiator on my car. I've done a tune-up. I've changed the oil. And the other piece is my mom, actually. It's one of the most, I'll never forget it. I came home in like the third grade, and the teacher had told us that, we had a spelling bee every Friday, a spelling test every Friday. And the teacher said, well, this week, I'm not going to call out the words. You have to memorize the words and spell them. So we thought this was akin to curing cancer. The entire school, we were, as we say here where I'm at now in Alabama, we were all tore up about this, And so I went home at lunch and I was like, I'm crying, Mom, we're going to have to memorize the list. And my mom said, oh, it's okay. You can do this. And she said, so that night we started working on it. She said, say the first word. And I did, and spell it. And I was usually a good speller. So that part didn't freak me out, but I would spell it. And then she'd say the first and the second word and spell them. And I do the first one and the second one and spell them. And we kept going till we got all, I don't know, 15, 20 words, whatever the list was. And it was, I realized now, a very powerful lesson, in that I realized that sometimes when you see something that looks insurmountable, that you can do it. And so that was a powerful lesson. And the second one was that sometimes you have to get help. And that was a powerful lesson. And so I think between those things, that's what allowed me, or kind of fostered me, being an overachiever.
That's interesting. That made me remember something about my dad. When I would get in trouble for school stuff, or I didn't bring the right grades home, my punishment was to do the timetables from 1 through 12, and I had to get them right. So if somewhere in the middle, like 6 times 7, if I got that one wrong, he wouldn't say anything. He would just go 1 times 1. And I was like, and back then we lived in Dallas, so he would do it at like 6:30, right before like 7 o'clock shows, primetime shows. So if I didn't get it right in 30 minutes, that means I didn't get to watch my shows right away.
Whoa!
So
whoa!
He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. And
so he, Dr. Phil, it's like you need to know your child's currency. So he knew your currency. He knew.
My dad got my number early on.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's interesting because as I grew older, I just knew that repetition was the way to remember things for me. Just keep saying it, especially now as an actor, or when I'm going to do a speech. Repetition, just keep saying it. Don't stress over it. Just keep repeating it. It'll come through. So we have a lot of that. Another thing that stood out to me as you were introducing yourself is for anybody watching out there, it's the why me, why not me syndrome. Like, if first of all, it's like something happens, like for instance, for me, health issues, and other people have passed. Like, why am I still here and they're not here? And then the why not me syndrome is, if nobody else is going to do anything about it, I'm going to do something about it. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. And I kind of known this about myself. I realized it sometime in the past that like my ego, it doesn't need to be a leader. I don't need that. But I have also known that if leading is needed and no one else is there to do it, I'll do it. I can do it, and I think that's what's happened here. I think I'm sort of just had this sort of vision at the right time and space, where it's like we have all of these wonderful people who have created all these nonprofit organizations and humanitarian organizations, and they've been doing whatever they can do in the influence that they have. But now we're at the place where we're global. And we have to start operating on a global basis. And we've seen what happens with the pandemic if we do not, as we are still experiencing the joy of that, And so I realized that we're at a place in humanity's development and that we must learn to work together. So we've got to have some entity that is now kind of putting it all together, working with all the humanitarian groups, working with all the countries across the world, working with all the politicians and in the businesses across the world to create a global management of the world. But it needs to be based in a spirituality. I think that's part of the issue right now is, that businesses are running. It's like they're separating their spiritual life from what they do in their business. Because it's like, whoever made the decisions to poison the water in Flint, Michigan, that was not spiritually based. That's somebody off the path, and so we need some kind of entity that is helping humanity to focus on the beauty that's within us, and to remind us of that, and to remind us that we need to let that out in our business practices and in every element of our lives. And if we do that, this world will get to the place where everybody has a place to live, everybody has food, everybody has health care. We will get there if we now start working all this together.
Gotcha. Now, it takes a high level of empathy and to be an empath, to take knowledge. Let me rephrase that. To acknowledge and then to go on and do something about what's happening in our circle. Have you always been that way since you were little? Were you?
I think so. I think so, but I think I was driven away from that. When I look at myself now, well, it could be menopause. It might just be menopause, Daniel. I don't know.
Darn you,
Um,
menopause.
Dang it. But when I look back at myself, I think I was very empathic and very connected emotionally to people when I was a kid, like in high school, or younger. And I do remember standing outside my house one day with my dad, and I remember him saying, you're gonna have to stop wearing your what is the phrase? You have to stop wearing your emotions on your sleeve or
Your
something
heart in
like
your
that.
sleeve.
Yeah, and so I kind of learned to be tougher and tougher in school. And then when I went into business, you had to be tough in certain ways. You had to, like when you're negotiating a contract, you have to stand your ground and you have to ask your questions. Now what does this mean in the contract? I don't agree with that. We're going to have to change that. And I learned to be tougher in that way, and sort of push that empathic part of me away. And then, but it kept coming back, and and it kept coming back, where in these moments I would have this vision of, you're supposed to be doing something else. And now I realize that I needed to let that empathic part of me take charge,
Gotcha.
again. And so I think I always was, but I think it got pushed away just by society and my dad's perception of what it took to make it in the world. And not that he was wrong, because you really, in this world, in the way it is now, you really do have to be pretty tough
Yeah.
to get through.
I think the level of a person's shell is determined by the time and space that we live in.
Hmm.
The shell that my parents had created for themselves to survive whatever they went through, although
Hmm.
they taught that to me, and I definitely, nurturing has a lot to do.
Hmm.
I had to, my level of my shellness was based on my nature and what I went through. But you're right.
Hmm.
I mean, we learn from our parents, and then we learn from our peers and the things around us. Um, Now I'm going to bring this up because you bring it up right up front in your bio,
Uh-huh.
sexuality, and
Yes.
you just mentioned you came out at 41,
What
um,
what was that?
and that you came out at 41.
Hmm.
For
Hmm.
me, that's okay. For everybody out there. I came out when I was 17, and
Hmm.
so I've been out of the closet way more than I've ever been in. And if you
Hmm.
come and look at my closet, you'll see that I haven't been in there in a long time. But um, so I have learned the pros and cons of having come out so young in my life. What have been some of the pros and cons of coming out later in life?
Okay, so I think, boy, it's definitely given me a very unique perspective, I think. Because knowing, meeting, LGBT people now, and those that came out much younger, there's a lot more, for them. There's a lot more of the hit, the fear, because they were out at a time where they could easily get killed or beat up, or, and all of that. And they came out at not only a time period for that, but an age where you're more vulnerable. If you're in high school, if you're in grade school, you have a lot less control over what happens to you. So at 41, I was pretty sure that, at least if I was careful, I wouldn't get killed. I mean, you could still do that in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it's safer than it was. I also didn't have as much of the I forget the phrase, but where the internalized hatred
Hmm.
of yourself, because it's like I thought I was, heterosexual till age 41, and then I realized I'm not, and like I'm still the same person. Nothing else changed. And so if I liked myself before, why wouldn't I like myself now? Just because I find out that I'm attracted to a female, and so I think I sense a lot more of the internalized homophobia and stuff from people who have known they were gay for years and years. The downside, I guess, was just, and I'm experiencing this now because I mean, I'm experiencing sort of the opposite of it, was that it's in being with other LGBT people now, I realize there's a history that I wasn't a part of, because I didn't know I was gay, and it wasn't that I wasn't gay friendly, or I was just kind of gay oblivious. I knew like one guy that I worked with that was gay, and I liked him. He's a cool guy and everything, but I didn't really run around or hang out with gays that I knew of. I mean, I'm sure. Well, actually, I know there were some that were gay that they probably thought she does not have a clue. She is so gay. She is so gay. It has no clue that she's gay.
Girl, let me tell you about this Grace person.
Yeah, exactly. And but I I wasn't. I'm only now with being in more of the company of lesbians and stuff. Kind of understanding the fight that they went through. The fight that they went through to have less fear, less danger, to be out there. And it's only now that I'm really feeling the magnitude of what they went through. And so I think that's part of what I didn't have from not knowing I was gay earlier.
Interesting. Before we continue,
yeah.
let me just remind everybody you're watching Put It Together. My guest today is the amazing Grace Lawson from Rainbow Soul Circle, and we're talking overachieving, coming out, and pros and cons of being who we are.
Yes.
It's really interesting that you say that, because like I came out very young, so I didn't have a long time of pretending to not be. But coming from a very traditional machista culture, we Latino,
Mm-hmm.
I've often been asked, well, did you think you were lying to other people? You were lying to yourself about who you were? I'm like, no, I don't think I was lying. I was pretending to not be that. I wasn't pretending to be straight. I was just pretending to not be gay. Just don't find me out. That's all I need. I don't care if you don't think I'm straight. I just don't want you to know I'm gay. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I have seen that. I have sensed that in a lot of people. I've heard stories like that where they would like a female would date lots of guys to try to find a guy that would be right for them, and then they finally realized no guy was right for them. And so I've definitely seen that in a lot of people I've met. And now for me, just to make this point clear, because I've had been asked this several times, they're like, "You really didn't know?" And I did not know. I truly did not know until age 41. And I was very surprised, And I remember getting out on the internet when I finally realized this, because I just, and people said, well, how did you realize you were gay? And I was, it was bizarre. I was in I was in a life coaching class and a training, and they, and in in the coaching that I've learned, part of helping a person change perspective or change if they're stuck in a way of thinking is actually physically moving around the room and doing things. So I was like laying on the floor with this life coach, the trainer, and I was really focused on her at the moment, answering her questions and so forth. And then at the end of it, she gave me a homework assignment. And then and so I ended up having contact with her afterwards for a phone call, by phone. But at that point, at some point in there, I realized I had this energy relationship with her. This energy, it's like where your auras, connected up in this way that I had never experienced before. Ever. I mean, it was palpable, but I didn't really realize it while it was happening, because I was very, it was in my head with the coaching. And so I realized afterward, I think I'm gay. And so I had not had any physical contact with anyone, but I was 99.9% sure that I
Wow.
was.
Wow.
And so it's just a bizarre story and everything. And she, later on, I found out she was gay, but she turned out not to be the one. It's very a whole crazy story. But you know how when you watch movies and they talk about the magic and the energy and all of that, I had never experienced that until that moment,
Wow.
and that's how I knew.
Isn't it crazy?
So.
Just to, because I started dating girls when I was
Hmm.
in junior high,
Hmm.
and the first girl that I dated, uh, it's funny how my inner clock, um, or my inner brain was like I knew I was gay, but I knew that I had to at least give dating girls a try. So I dated the girl that had the strictest dad. Her brother was in junior high with us, and he was a big bully, so I had to
Hmm.
behave. And she lived like not too far from school, so I would walk her. But I knew that her brother would be watching, so I couldn't do anything. Like, well, there was no second base there. Like
Right, right.
I wasn't even allowed to bat at that point. Like, nothing's gonna happen. But subconsciously, that's what I'm looking for. Subconsciously, I picked the most difficult girl to date in school so that I wouldn't have to have these like temptations or opportunities to do anything with her. And that
Uh-huh.
carried on in junior high and then in high school. In high school,
Wow.
when my girlfriend, the last girlfriend that I had, I smoked in high school, and she's like, I hate it when you smoke. I don't want to kiss you. And I was like, light a cigarette.
Let me get some cigars and cigarettes.
The stinkiest, cheapest cigarettes I can get. But I mean, subconsciously, I think that I did that until I met the dude. Like, I remember meeting somebody in high school and being like, oh my God, like for the first time, I didn't care what people thought. It just didn't
Hmm.
matter. So I
Hmm.
get where you're coming from, that like you live in this world. I really did think that most gay men were in the closet. I believed, and there's a whole story that you and I talked about before, but we won't get into all that. There's this history of how I connected with other men sexually, and most of them were married. And
Hmm.
so I did believe I'm supposed to marry a woman and live
Hmm.
secretly as a gay man. That's the way it works. Until
Gotcha.
I met that one guy in school that I was like, this is it. This is it. And then
Hmm.
it completely changed. Does that make sense?
It does.
And it's
Yeah.
not even physical. So for people out there, sexuality doesn't have to be physical. It's just spiritual, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I um with I can't remember what I was going to say. Come, leave me with another question, Daniel. Don't come back.
No, so we were
Uh,
talking about
uh,
I cut you off where it was like just that energy, like, oh, this is who I
oh,
am.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I did. One other thing that was interesting, because I thought, how in the world did I get this far in my life and not know that I was gay? How did that happen, really? And I did do some research on that. And for anybody else that's out there that may be questioning or whatever, that like there was sort of a profile of women, particularly who this happened to. And I've actually met a number of women in the recently in similar situations where they didn't know till they were older. And part of it seemed like the profile was like, you had a domineering father. And I did have that. And then there were some other characteristics of that. So there was a list of things, and I thought, oh, I do fit a lot of that. And so I think so, and I don't know if it's with if I don't know if it's, I can't remember because I read these books a while 18 years ago or so, but it was I'm thinking that if you have someone in your life that's fairly domineering, it makes you tend to be more conforming. And so, you think about overachiever, you're doing all this stuff at school because it makes your parents happy, and, and all that kind of thing. And so it could be that because of that, you never give the idea that you might be gay any kind of credence. Now I don't know why. Like, I know I've talked to a lot of women where they were constantly having crushes on women, girls when they were girls. And I don't remember having that. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if, I had two brothers and we played together all the time. And so it could be just that, I was, never hanging out with a bunch of girls very that often because I was with my brothers and we were all doing, and I was a tomboy, so we were doing boy stuff mostly. Playing ball and sports and all that kind of thing. So maybe I just wasn't around enough girls to form those crushes with them. I don't know, but I know when I look back, I do fit a lot of the stereotypes though, because I totally remember when I was with some girls, I do remember that they would play Barbies for hours and change the clothes on their dolls. And I remember thinking, I don't understand why we're spending hours doing this. What is the deal with the clothing and the dolls? What is that? Because I'm not playing Tonka toys and play with Tonka toys and race cars and stuff. But now having watched Project Runway and all those kinds of things, I totally understand the beauty of fashion and the magnificence of design. But for me, the movie Jeff Goldblum's the movie The Fly, where he has 14 suits that are identical. He does the same suit, he just wears a clean one every day. That could totally be me.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, it's interesting, and I'm glad we kind of brought it up, and I'm happy that we're so comfortable with each other that we can make it lighter than it has to be. For anybody out there, sexuality, diversity, it's not that difficult to understand, but we try to overcomplicate it. And people talk about like boxing genders, like boys blue, girls pink, boys trucks, girls dolls. But when I was a kid, I had my Tonka trucks and my bike, and I loved like doing crazy stuff. But I also kidnapped one of my sister's little dolls, and she would get kidnapped by the Planet of the Apes dolls, and then the $6 million man would come and save her, and they would ride her up in their Tonka truck together. But then I loved combing her hair and making her look pretty, and so there was this balance for me growing up that my diversity, it's called diversity. I was right there in the middle. I was gay enough to like boys, but I was straight enough to like playing in dirt with trucks. So for anybody out there who has kids, just let them be. They will figure it out. They will let you know the direction that they go into. So just go. But it is crazy to me that like 41 years old and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh, it was a shock. It was absolutely a shock for sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And that's why, and that takes us right into the Rainbow Soul Circle stuff, because if for those folks who are on the call, if you go out to the website and all that, part of the plan for the Rainbow Soul Circle, I mean, there's a massive social element to it, where it's going to be fun and exciting, and we're going to do spirituality does not have to be boring. It does not have to be boring. It can be fun. And so I plan on having drag queens as an integral part of that for several reasons. One is they're not boring. They're very entertaining. One is if you watch the RuPaul's Drag Race, and I've watched almost all the seasons now, it gave me something to do during the pandemic. And if you watch that, you will find that many of them are very deeply spiritual.
Yeah.
And you can imagine that they've had to get to that place through their own searching, because traditional religions rejected them. Traditional society has rejected them. Now it's changing, but historically that's what's happened. And then I just read a quote by, I think it was Gloria Steinem. It says, "We're now teaching our girls it's okay to have masculine tendencies." I mean, she worded it differently, but this was the gist, I think. But we'll know the world has really changed when we allow boys to have feminine tendencies.
Yeah. And the real,
because still boys are still the ones that are the most condemned for having feminine qualities. And personally, it feels like an insult when I see that. It's like, what's wrong with feminine qualities? There's no, I mean, feminine nurturing and all that is it kept our society together in many ways. And the fact that there are men out there that feel feminine and they feel nurturing and they want to wear whatever clothes they want to wear. um, I mean, that's the beauty of diversity. Let them wear whatever clothes they want to wear.
Yeah.
And so that's part of this is creating a world where everybody can be whatever their soul calls them to be, whatever they're passionate about. If they want to wear a full pink outfit every day, go boy. It should not matter. And if anything, we should say, wow, that person's really interesting. I'd like to know them because they're wearing that pink outfit. you know and so that whole thing about men not being able to be feminine. I you know Whenever I see a guy that allows himself to be, has feminine side to come out, I know that guy is comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
you know
And
that
I
you know
believe that, like, for instance, we had this craze of metrosexuals like in the 90s and
hmm
early 2000s, and metrosexuals was that borderline where you're straight but just in touch with your femininity enough to allow yourself to be pretty. But I remember my dad growing up. My dad was the kind of guy that his shirts has to be starched, his pants were ironed, he wore cologne, he made sure everything looked good on him.
hmm
So my dad was very metrosexual in the 70s and 80s. And
mm,
but for some reason, I guess because he's Latino and macho, nobody questioned it. Nobody even said anything about it.
hmm
Uh,
hmm
so anyway, for everybody out there, do whatever you want. You go be you. But I want to touch because we're 20 minutes till the end of the show. So I want to make
Okay.
sure that we talk about spirituality and spirituality and energy, and because I think it's become beyond. Example, when I came out when I was 17. This is 1988. So for the next several years, I was searching for that space where I was raised Catholic, where I could still tap into my religion, connect with energy,
hmm
be accepted. And I went through different like support groups and youth groups. And up until I was like 21, 22, we didn't have the internet. There wasn't somewhere where you could just Google gay spiritual support groups. But
Yes.
now we can access anything from, the lockdowns taught us that we can access anything from our computers. And every day there's something new out there. So
hmm
my question is, in this world of abundance that we live in,
hmm
what made you think of Rainbow Soul Circle, and then what made you want to launch it?
Well, it just I started out with the idea, the background of not wanting to have that happen to anyone else, where they killed themselves because of spirituality. And then I attended two things at a Unity church where I forget what they called them, but because we're using Spirit Circle, but they use a different term, but where you would get together and sort of intend for each other what you wanted to have happen going forward in your life. And it could be anything: a good job, a relationship, a partner, or whatever. And I went to two different ones. And the one time I was focusing on getting a new job, and then one time I was focusing on whether I should end my heterosexual 20-year marriage, because I thought, because it wasn't working for me. And then but at the same time I was realizing I was gay. It was very weird about how all that played out. And I was intending for my right and perfect partner, was what I had intended for during that particular thing. And both of those it played out in that I got one of the best jobs I'd ever had. And then I found a partner that I was with for 16 years. And I wanted that again. I want to manifest some more things like that. And if you go on the website, you won't see a lot of that talk about manifestation, really, because it will be a part of what we do, but I didn't want it to be the Rainbow Soul Circle to be perceived as one of those cult things, where they get up there and go, oh, we can. And I actually think you can manifest a lot of things, health and things like that. But I, just from experiences I've had, but I didn't want it to be like, oh, we can save everyone from where they're perfect health all the time and blah, and all that kind of thing. We can manifest massive riches, and I think that's possible. I actually do believe that that's possible, but I believe it's more important that you focus on knowing you, because if you focus on it, really knowing you and knowing who you are and crafting a life where you can let you out, everything else will fall into place. And so that's really the way I've moved in that direction. And but that's what was sort of the impetus. And then the other part of it again was that part of it was it's where anger has been transformed into something positive, because like the man film, in fact, and Rainbow Soul Circles is similar in that the man film started for me when I was actually in Alabama at a workshop, and they were looking at Kavanaugh. So we're going to have to get a little political here, but they were looking at Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. And I remember sitting there, and there was a waitress and a lady at the table, and she was saying, I wonder what she was wearing, talking about the woman that was testifying, that Kavanaugh had some expressions. And it just set me off. I thought, oh my goodness, we are still having this discussion at this time. We had it 30 years ago. We had it before that, and so that's when I went in my master's degree with metaphysical science, and I did it on men to understand why men are the way they are. And I did find, it was very fascinating about what, there are big macro issues that have caused men to be the way they are. And not that men are bad, they're not. And, I think, you are one of the best human beings I've ever met. And I've met lots of good men, but they're, when you think about your parents, only, I have some stats that I've gathered, that only like 90% of men don't feel like they have a good relationship with their dad. And that's big, that's huge. And the reasons, though, the big macro issues, it's like years ago, they were hunters and gatherers. And so they learned to be men alongside their dads, alongside them. They learned what it meant to be a man. But then they had the macro issues where when they stopped being hunters and gatherers, they started working in factories. They worked long hours. When they came home, they were exhausted. The boys did not get to see their dads become men in that way. And then they went to wars. So we think, oh, well, wars, we count it in terms of the number of people dying. But what if we count it in terms of the number of children harmed because their parents aren't able or capable of giving them what they need because they've come back from war, And so, so my idea with the film was, let's take men and let men tell men what it's like to be a man now, and so that's how the film came to pass. The same thing with the Rainbow Soul Circle. It's like, it was somewhat anger, because I remember watching Rodney King, 30 years ago. I was teaching in a classroom, and I had, and we ended up having, to talk about this in the classroom, because, they weren't going to do math that day, because I was teaching math, but no math was going to happen. And it was one of the moments I'm proudest of, that I threw away math that day, and we just talked about that. And but then, when all these things have happened recently, it was like, I can't believe we're still, like, so me as a white person, it's like, I thought I did the stuff I was supposed to do. I made sure that people that anybody that worked for me, that I supervised, that I feel like they got equal chance. I didn't grow up with prejudice. and I think I was lucky in that my mom and dad never did teach me things like that. And then I remember distinctly in like early middle school asking my father, I said, so dad, you're telling, and I don't know what happened, but I remember saying, you're telling me that there are people who don't like other people or think they're less than because of the color of their skin? And I remember asking him this, and he responded. He said yes, Grace. He said there are people that believe that, but the military doesn't believe that, because which I know is not completely true, you know. But from his perspective, that was the experience he got in the military, was that, you know, where whoever his supervisors, whatever his unit was, apparently there wasn't that, you know, the any underlying
Right.
racism built into that. And so he said, no, Grace, the military doesn't believe that. You should judge a person by what they do. And, you know, so I thought, okay, that makes sense. And I moved on. You know,
Gotcha.
so when I was supervising people, it didn't matter to me what color they were. I mean, I just, do they do good work? Do, you know, and I viewed anybody that came and worked for me and worked their heart out to do their job. It was my job to try to help make sure they were marketable and that their work was respected, and so forth. And I wasn't perfect a manager by any means. You know, there, when I look back, I'm like, oh, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. Could have done that better. But I definitely consciously, once I understood this whole thing with racism and all that, I consciously, you know, realized that there were issues there, and that, you know, I need to make sure that my people are treated equally, you know,
Right.
well, fairly. And so when I look back, and, you know, I was just like, you know, I did not realize there was just such a big segment of people that still felt that way,
Yeah.
you
I
know, and
think
that was
that,
part of the driver for the soul circle.
yeah, I think that since we can't go back and pull the root of where racism and discrimination started from, that it will continue to grow for as long as we're alive. And it's what we do with that that can change the world. It's the ripple effect. You know, I can only change what's around me, and hope that it touches somebody who can then take it somewhere else. All right. So we're coming down to the last 10 minutes of the show. And this is about the part where we ask our guests to share some words of wisdom. So, Grace Lawson, what words of wisdom do you have for the audience?
Another area that I would at least know is coming.
Well, if
But
you
did I?
watch the show, if anybody watches the show, you know that words of wisdom is down towards the end. So,
Yeah. And know that Grace has control issues, you know. um, but yeah, I did. I don't know that I really thought out well enough, like I normally would, if my life wasn't pretty crazy right now. But I guess the first thing that came to mind when I saw that that was a segment on here, the biggest thing that when I look back is that whatever it is that you think is weird about you, you need to go there. You need to explore that, because that is probably one of your most powerful places in terms of who you are and what you bring, why you were put on this planet. And I tell you why. Well, what is, I've just seen this play out in other people and in myself. But I remember I wrote the paper that I wrote called The Physics of Faulkner. Okay, that it's odd, it's weird, you know, because what I did was I wrote on, you know, William Faulkner, which William Faulkner is a kind of hard author to read anyway, and the book that he wrote, The Sound of the Fury, is one of the more difficult books to read of his, I think, and I'm not a literature scholar, but I had to read this in college, and then I was taking physics. Well, what I found, I was getting like sort of the overachiever triple major with math, physics, and English. But what I saw was that humanity, in all of those different segments of study, they were all doing the same thing. They were all looking for truth. They were all looking for wisdom, and they were all looking for better understanding of the world. And in each segment, they were learning the same things, and it was fascinating to me. And so I wrote this paper. Well, so that and so I took this paper home and told my parents I had won this award, and my dad said, "Let me see the paper." So he takes the paper. And he starts reading it. I don't think he finishes it. I think he just reads a few minutes of it. And then he goes, "You're weird." You know, which kind of broke my heart at the time. You know, I won this award. It was like the best paper
ah,
of the entire college. So it was a pretty big deal, and then my feedback from my dad, you're weird. But but if you read that paper today, you would understand why I'm where I'm at today, because it's got Rainbow Soul Circle written all over it.
Isn't it interesting?
It was a total looking at the universe and looking at how the universe is pieced together, and what matters in the universe, and what were they learning, what was humanity learning in those different studies. And so now I look back, and I look back at and I was weird. There were odd things about me. I remember feeling like I didn't fit in many places. And now I realize that all of that drove me here. And I have seen that in many other people. I've seen it in you. I've seen it. So I would just say the first thing is, if you feel like you don't fit in, that is probably your power. Whatever that is, that's probably the most powerful thing you have. So I would say, if you're weird, celebrate it and look at it and say, why do I have that? Because there's a reason why you're weird. There's a reason why you have those differences.
Yeah.
You're bringing something to us that the rest of us don't have. So that's the first thing I would say. The second one is, I would say, look at the time you're spending, and how much of it are you doing what your soul and your passions say to do, versus satisfying other people.
Yep.
We are taught to conform. Everything around society right now teaches us to conform. And if you're conforming, you're not living out the passions, you're not living out the gifts that you were given. If you're doing everything for others, and I don't mean in a service kind of way. I mean, but you're doing stuff that you don't feel passionate about. I would really look at that. Because our world will be a better place if each of us lives from that passion place. That, think back to when you were a little kid, and what did you enjoy? Go back, way back, and say, oh, I was working with a lady recently where she loved drawing pictures of animals and plants, and then she loved a couple other things. And she was kind of pursuing a bit of something in those areas, but it wasn't full on, pulling all that together. And I said, well, what if you draw pictures of animals and blah, blah, blah? And she went, oh, so I would go back to your childhood, and anywhere along the way where you felt strongly about something. Because if you feel that strongly about something, you might need to be involved in that.
Yeah, you read my mind. I was just thinking, when clients ask me, like, I don't know what my purpose or my passion is, I'm like, go ask the younger version of you. It'll tell you. It'll tell you.
Yes.
Well, I hate to do this because we're getting to the meat of a conversation. We're coming down to the end of the show. We've got like 3 minutes to go. I want to remind everybody. I posted it up. Rainbow Soul Circle. Go check out the website. Go in there and watch it. Play with it. See what's about. Learn a little more.
Guys, so the two big things that we need to get for you guys and everybody here to help us is, we need numbers and money, of course. But the way we've designed this is that we're going to be able to make amazing, powerful changes across the globe with just a little bit of help from each person, just like Obama did when he got elected, right? And so if you struggle financially, just go in and enroll in Red Level 5. It's free, and I guarantee you will be glad. And if you're not, you can email me a year from now and say, that was a waste of time, but the Red Levels is free. Go in and at least do that, and then the last part of it, and then the orange level, which is red orange, is $5 a month. But if you go out there and look, I will guarantee you that you will be glad you enrolled in any of the levels. But those are it's the numbers that are going to help us do this. So please enroll in these levels, and please start communicating this to your friends, because we are going to make a difference. I am concerned. I don't have any kids, but I'm concerned for your kids that this planet will be here. And so I just please help us, because we will make this difference. I promise you. There are reasons why the time is now.
And I'm very honored. No. I love that passion. I'm very honored, excited, and humbled to be part of Rainbow Soul Circle. And You might see my name on there, and you might see some of my projects on there. So we'll be presenting some workshops and some classes, and so I'm very excited to be part of this. So I appreciate you. For anybody, remember, there's a website. Go check it out. Play with it. Look around. If you have any questions, make sure you contact us, and we will respond to anything. Grace, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been
Thank you, Daniel.
pleasure.
And thank you all you folks that are on this call, for either, because you either know myself or Daniel. I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to know Daniel, and I'm very blessed that you all are on this for whatever reason. Because I know anybody that's watching Daniel, I know that you are good people. I know, and it's that gives me faith and the energy to keep going. So thank you.
Well, I have some very loyal followers, and they're always I always know one to two things. If they're too quiet, it's because they're really engrossed in the conversation. So I have two. So I'm going to put you in the green room for just a second while I say goodbye to everybody. But thank you so much for being on the show. I really did appreciate our conversation.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
For everybody watching, remember to check us out. This has been a special episode today, but we're on Wednesdays, 6, 9 Eastern for the Christian and Daniel Show, Fridays, 5, 8 Eastern for the Cardivo, and put together on Saturdays at 12, 3 Eastern. Check those times out. Go look at us at littlemexicanproductions.com for more information, and hashtag us at Little Mexican Productions Inc. We are super excited. Oh, there you go. We did get a bye. Thanks, Texas. It's my sister. For those of you watching, thank you again for joining us. This has been a special episode to Put It Together. I am off for the next 2 Saturdays, so we will not have shows the next 2 Saturdays if you're watching, but we will be back in, let me give you the exact date. We'll be back March 12th. So we're going to take a couple of weeks off. We'll be back March 12th with more shows. But love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.